Hey guys, welcome back to the ramble. I am your host, Muriel Legier, as always, and I've been scratching my head in an attempt to not go completely insane. This is considering consent. At every stage of a sexual encounter, enthusiastic verbal consent has to be received. Sounds good on paper, does it not? Sane, safe, and consensual. I doubt that very many people would disagree with the notion that consent to fucking is necessary. Non-consensual sex is, after all, nothing but rape, and rape, despite what the feminist hive mind would have one believe, is the most frowned upon crime there is, often considered more of a trespass on people's bodily autonomy than murder. If you can believe that. However gruesome I consider rape to be, and I consider it to be quite gruesome, I would dare say that being murdered is worse. But what the hell do I know? I am not allowed to speak on the topic, given that I was gifted a penetrating rape implement of doom at birth, which I occasionally refer to as my throbbing patriarchy muscle. Just add this topic to the list of other topics which the feminist hive mind have decided that men are not allowed to talk about by virtue of them being men, would you please? The list is getting quite lengthy. It is almost as though one would be inclined to believe that men talking about things, well, anyone but a self-declared feminist, really, takes control of the narrative away from the mouths and eager hand-wringers of feminism, and so everyone but feminists, yet men in particular, must not be allowed to talk about some things in order to make the feminist view of things the mainstream view of things. The only view of things, in fact. The idea that verbal and enthusiastic consent has to be given and received at every stage, every escalation of events in a sexual encounter neglects, and one assumes willfully, one very important aspect of human communication. Most of our communication is non-verbal. Body language is one of our most powerful, most potent tools of communication. We use it and we read it subconsciously, all the bloody time. Usually, people don't need to say that they are uncomfortable, or if they are comfortable. Looking at their pose, their posture, the movement or lack thereof, of their hands, arms, legs, whatever, is usually more than enough to tell you most of what you need to know. It does not matter whether it is a sexual scenario or not, non-verbal communication is incredibly powerful, as well as being universal. I doubt anyone would be surprised to learn that human beings are sexual creatures, that sex is one of those rare pleasures in life. Oddly enough, it is simultaneously one of the most profound and one of the most mundane pleasures of life. And as such, we seek sex. I would dare propose that we seek it more or less all the time, constantly tuned into a strong biological desire to fornicate. And there's nothing wrong with this. Most of us are quite capable of self-control. Those who are not are, despite the feminist claim, in the minority. The latter-day Puritans and their confounding monologues regarding sexual consent is a strange and peculiar thing. Demanding, first and foremost, enthusiastic verbal consent at every stage of the deed. Something which would remove the fun, playful, spontaneous nature of sex. It's not very sexy to stop every 5 minutes to check in, one assumes. But, well, never mind and no matter. There's nothing sexy about sex, after all. Except when it is, when it isn't. And more frightening than this strange attempt at neglecting human nature and human communication, turning humanity into robots along the way, is the newly found and strangled idea that consent can be revoked at any time, even after the dirty deed. Days or weeks or months or even years after the fact, and this is terrifying. One can never be sure of the consent in such a scenario. Even if enthusiastic verbal consent is given, it does not matter much. It cannot be trusted for 5 flatulent seconds, should this come to pass. And then one begins to wonder, what's the point of receiving consent? What's the point of fucking at all, if consent can be revoked post-fornication, leaving one with the greatest post-fucking blues of all time? It has already been well established from the feminist hordes and the societies we inhabit that women cannot give meaningful consent when drunk. Men are able to do so, of course, and as expected. And in a scenario where both man and woman are drunk and proceed to do the horizontal tango, the man is a rapist and the woman is raped. It is a bit strange and peculiar, to say the least, that a man is considered to be capable of giving consent where the woman is not. Were the rules to be applied evenly, one would assume that both are guilty of raping the other, thus nullifying any potential accusation of rape. And this idea that drunken sex is always rape of the woman does not compute. Not that it matters much, as the man is seen as being capable and the woman is seen as not being capable. Now, for my own part, I believe, and have believed for most of my life, that people should be more thoughtful about who they fuck, and when, and where, and how. At the very least, people ought to be careful and take such precautions as are necessary to minimize the risk of unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. It seems like common sense to me. See, there is, I believe, a reason for sex and sexuality being controlled in one way or other through religious doctrines or social contracts or law or whatever. As much fun as it is, sex was and is not without its risks, unwanted pregnancies resulting in unwanted children being but a small part of it. It seems that the sexual liberation, the sexual revolution, the coming of the birth control pill, alongside other easily accessible methods of protection and prevention, left us confused and confounded about the very nature of sex, and the very nature of humanity. Being free to fuck whomsoever one wants to fuck, with a severe reduction of the risks usually associated with fucking, leaves something out of the equation. Seemingly, it has left the very simple idea that actions have consequences, and that these consequences have to be dealt with in one way or the other. And giving consent to fuck someone in an inebriated state whom one would probably not fuck in a state of sobriety means nothing but this. One has given consent to fuck someone which one would not fuck when sober. Regretting it the next day does not make it rape, nor can inebriation be used as a bludgeoning tool against the other party when both parties were inebriated. If the man is capable of consent when drunk, and the woman is not, then women should not be allowed to drink alcohol. Now, of course, I don't personally believe women should not be allowed to consume alcohol, but if women are unable to take responsibilities for their actions when drunk, whereas men are, then it stands to reason that women cannot be considered as mature adults capable of doing what adults do, and this includes taking responsibility for their actions, whether inebriated or not. To believe that women, when consuming alcohol, are incapable of consciously doing anything at all, and as such need to have the responsibility of their actions wiped, whilst at the same time believing that men have the clarity and presence of mind when under the influence of alcohol, to take responsibility for both themselves as well as women, is nothing but believing women to be less than men in every conceivable manner. And here I am supposed to be the one with a poor view of women. And to make sure and to make certain, I am not referring to being blackout drunk, passed out drunk or whatever. It stands to reason that someone who is passed out cannot communicate in any meaningful way. Granted, this line of thinking comes from someone who believes in monogamy and long-term relationships, someone who believes in the stability and safety of pair bonding. Someone who is not, to put it as simple as I can, a huge fan of one-night stands and other such quick and easy paths to immediate pleasure. So my bias is clear on this one. And this does not mean that I really care what other people do. If you get your kicks from one-night stands and casual flings, go ahead. I really don't care. Still, people have to understand what it is that they are doing, and what it is that they are getting themselves into, and this seems to not be the case for many people. It is all well and good to have sex with someone in a drunken state of horny, eager readiness. It is quite another thing to wake up the next morning and regret it, concluding as one regrets it, that this must mean that it was rape. Even when consent was given at every stage of the encounter the previous night, or morning, or whenever, wherever, whatever. When consent was given, one assumes consent was given, that it cannot be retroactively removed. There is no point in giving or receiving consent in the moment if it can be revoked after the fact. But, well, all's well that Orwell's. The observant social observer might have observed that these new rules of fornication are not evenly applied. Consent is only and ever an issue when it comes to women. This is, of course, to be expected when feminism is in control of the discourse and the narrative. And that is exactly what they are. These poor, defenseless, powerless and oppressed women sure do wield a lot of social power, institutional power and global influence. Men, it is assumed, do not need to give meaningful consent because men are always and ever ready, willing and eager to fuck. A very gender-traditional, one would perhaps even say gender-stereotypical view of things, in all honesty, but that is par for the course when coming from the mouths of those who claim that gender stereotypes are hurtful, yet still engage in them as much and as often as they are able to. One rule for me, and another for thee. And this is the mantra, straight from the mouths of the latter-day Puritans. Men must seek and receive consent at all points. Women must not. And when consent can be revoked at any point, one cannot trust that the consent is given, however enthusiastic, However many times yes and oh god yes and various other ululations of ecstasy and consent and ecstatic consent is shouted into the great wild wondrous fog of sexual joy. In short, it means that women cannot be trusted. And this does not exactly sound like a good thing to say or think about women. Yet that is what it boils down to when women are free to post-coitally turn a clear yes into an uncontested no. Hashtag believe women made it so that the word of a woman shall be believed above all else. And then a yes cannot be trusted, the consent cannot be trusted, the woman cannot be trusted. Either women cannot leave their homes without chaperones, or feminism has got to admit that women can make mistakes just as men can make mistakes, and that women are quite capable of dealing with their mistakes in a mature and adult manner. You know, like what is expected of men. To accept that they screwed up that one time, learn from the screw up, and preferably not repeat it. I tend to believe that adult women are exactly that, adult women. That they are in fact not children who are incapable due to their lack of emotional maturity and development to take part in any social contract. But of course, this means that I hate women and oppress them terribly through wielding the mighty cocksword of patriarchal influence, being so horrible as to tell them to own their shit like men are supposed to do. Oh the horror, oh the humanity, oh the woe and oh the worry and the plight. But the world is such a weird and confusing place. And y'all are sure as hell adept at confusing the issue. Everything is made needlessly complicated in this information age of ours. But that'll have to be a ramble for another day. I believe the question of sexual consent as it is presented by feminism is, as are all things feminism, a question of control and a question of power. If one gives complete and utter control over sex, in all its forms and fancy, to feminism and, by proxy, women, then that is a whole hell of a lot of social power. That women in general, and feminism specifically, through wielding the poor oppressed woman card, wield and have always wielded an enormous amount of social influence and control is indisputable to all who have choked on the proverbial red pill. Men as a group may very well dominate the visible fields of power, the hard power as it were, though this does not mean that men use that power solely for the good of other men, not by any stretch of the imagination. Women as a group, however, dominate less visible fields of power, the soft power of social influence, and they appear to use this power solely for the good of women, if one considers feminism to be the manifestation of that soft power. I do not personally believe that it is for the good of women to be presented as helpless beings, just as incapable of taking responsibility for themselves as children are, but there you have it. That is what feminism manages when making women out to be victims of absolutely everything, and men as being perpetrators of absolutely everything. Women are helpless children, and men their tyrannical fathers, to the eyes of feminism and society overall. Still, feminism claims to work for the good of women, and so that is how it must be treated for the time being. This despite all evidence pointing to feminism really and truly only caring about feminism. Laying all the power of sex in the lap of women, and all the responsibilities of sex in the lap of men is a very lopsided approach to things. But that is what is being done. Little by little and as gradually as can be, it is what is being done. It is painting women as poor and innocent victims of men's perverted sexual appetites, just a pawn in their games of conquest. Someone who is being lured and manipulated by men into falling from grace, as it were. When moving the goalposts and reimagining the idea of rape, of sexual consent or lack thereof, defining it as broadly as possible, one cannot help but wonder if the end goal is to make it so that all heterosexual sex becomes rape by definition, if not necessarily by action. To turn the so-called radical feminist fantasy of all heterosexual sex being rape from fantasy into a terrifying actual reality. To make the radical the norm. When consent can be revoked retroactively, when consent can be willingly given, yet removed post-coitally, every single man becomes, in fact, a potential rapist. Not by his actions or lack thereof, but by the will and whimsy of a woman who gets to decide whether he lives or dies by a single word. Or by lack of a single word. And that, I think, is that. I hope you enjoyed this ramble more than my previous ramble. Should you wish to support the channel and the blog, please take a look at the links down below where you can purchase prints of my art or my books. And this is Boreology here, signing off.